This podcast is sponsored by Tusk, an open source non-ICO crypto project powered by community. Check them out on the web at tusk.network. That's TUSC.network. The Rob McNealy program is the nexus of cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, and entrepreneurship. Now, welcome to the program. Today, we're talking to Tim from Bits and Tokens, which is a company based in Florida. I think you're out of Miami, right, Tim?
Yeah, we work out of the Blockchain Center in Miami.
So cool. Well, you and I met a few weeks back in Las Vegas and did some partying together, which was kind of a hoot. You guys are definitely like half my age, and I had a hard time keeping up. But so tell me, what's your background? How did you get it back into crypto? How long you been in the space? Just for our audience, because our audience is not just a kind of a crypto audience. So tell me a little bit about, kind of how did you get here?
So as far as crypto, I've always been a really big nerd, and this website still exists, but it's not what it used to be back in the glory days. There's a website called hackaday.com where every day, it's like a blog, every day they would post a new hack or a new, technological advancement or whatever. And then one day, way back in the day, they posted about this wacky thing called Bitcoin. And I didn't know a lot about it, did a little bit more research, and then kind of fell in love with what it was supposed to be. Failed at mining a few times and just kind of gave up, 2-3 years, and then kind of got back into it. And then I met one of the other co-founders of Bits and Tokens, Jerome, and he also knew about Bitcoin cryptocurrency, and we decided, hey, let's do a podcast. And then I have this habit of just kind of spending way too much money. So I ended up, instead of a podcast, I bought lights, cameras, action, and we kind of just blossomed into this media company that we are today. Right around, I guess, 2017, when the ICO boom was kind of dying, it was really hard for actual reputable companies to find a media company that would work with them and not charge them an arm and a leg. And we had all the equipment, and we were friends with lots of these companies. So we decided, we'll just work with them. And they recommended us to their friends and friends of friends. And here we are today with this huge network of companies that we work with.
Well, I think you bring up a good point. We as a project been around a couple of years too. And this is one of the things that I've tried to explain to people, why crypto, I think, is some way being held back by itself, is that, during late 2017 and early 2018, when that whole ICO rush was going nuts, companies were raising insane amount of money. And these startups that were raising this amount of money also didn't handle money very well. So they would literally throw money at anything that moved. And I would contend a in ways where they didn't get a good ROI, or they didn't think about the ROI. So what happened is all these vendors that kind of were catering to crypto startups and blockchain projects just literally gouged the snot out of anything. And so I think that's what you're kind of looking at, or we're kind of addressing there, is the fact that a lot of these, vendors were just charging just astronomical rates that they couldn't get in any other industry. And it's just because there was just so much, stupid money being spent and floated around. And I think that's still happening. I think it's still happening to some degree, though it's gotten a lot better, I would say, over the last 2 years. And that's part of the problem with like listing fees and things like that. And so the problem with that is that very few legitimate projects were, and I think it's getting better now, but even now, it's still all pay to play. Influencers, conferences, things like that. What has your take been on that? Do you think it's still all pay to play, or do you think that's kind of getting better from what you're seeing?
No. So unfortunately, unfortunately, however you want to look at it, I know exchanges personally, some of the people who work at various exchanges, and their listing fees, it doesn't make sense at all for someone who's trying to be a currency maybe if you're a utility token, paying 10% of your token, the total supply, to one exchange, that might make sense. If it's a major exchange, it gets you a lot of exposure, whatever. But a lot of these exchanges are charging 10% of the total supply of your token just to list you, which doesn't really, I mean, you're not doing your end users any good by giving one entity 10% of the total supply. So it's a big problem still, I think. But there are some exchanges that are doing good in the world and not, trying to charge these crazy numbers. Like Change Angel is one of them. That's a really good kind of newish exchange. I don't think their listing fees are anything crazy like that, and they actually work with the projects that are listed there and give them some money back from the fees. So I think that's kind of a better model that we're leaning towards now. And then some of these exchanges that are asking for these crazy amounts of money, I think we're going to start seeing that slow down, hopefully, in the near future.
Well, I think part of the problem is I think and I'm not trying to, be discriminatory, but the Asian exchanges seem to be the worst from that. And they also seem to be the exchanges that have the most fake volume. So, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a bootstrapping kind of entrepreneur. So every decision, every dollar I make or I'm going to spend, I'm going to be very, very keen on looking at the ROI on that decision. So, we've talked down, and when we were in, Vegas together, I was telling you how we just, swapped over and we're now getting ready to go mainnet with our blockchain that we've been working on for over a year. And so
Right.
I've had to re-engage, it's interesting having to do this twice because, like, as a token, we spent the first 6 months trying to get on any exchange, but we didn't do an ICO, so we didn't have these listing fees. So we were kind of relegated to, really obscure small startup exchanges or dexes. But now, so I kind of knew the process like 2 years ago, and now it's like funny because we have to go through the process all again because now we have a chain, and it's harder as a chain than it is a token because they actually have to do some work to integrate it. And so
Right.
I've been talking to exchanges lately, and it's funny because now we have better tools now out there to evaluate exchanges. And I think if any of this is going to change, is that projects need to say no, especially good projects, to those listing fees. So I've been talking to one exchange recently, and what they want from us is 25 grand, and they want 1 billion tusk. Is what I just got this yesterday in my inbox. 1
They want
billion tusk. That's like,
the fee?
yeah, as a listing fee. And that's like 2% of our supply or something. And the funny thing is, as an exchange, or I'm sorry, as a community project, I don't even have control to give that, right? It's like we have to put everything up to a vote of the community, whether we would spend that. And
Right.
it's funny because this is an Asian exchange. And then on top of that, this exchange has notorious, if you like a CoinGecko's, rating, their volumes are completely BS. And so they're only like a couple $1 million a day exchange. And I can't justify in my brain or as an entrepreneur or as a steward of the Tusk, I believe that if I'm involved with, helping lead a project, even though it's not my money, it's the network's money, right? Or if there's, fees and stuff. But if I make a recommendation that the project spends some of that money, I believe I have to do my diligence and make sure that I'm acting as a good steward of those resources, even if it's not mine, right? And
Yeah.
I can't justify that because their exchanges, if one, they're not trustworthy. To me, if you're inflating your volumes by a huge amount, right? That's fraud. I just started there. It's fraud. So you're trying to make yourself look better. And I think part of the problem is with a lot of these exchanges is that their business model is listing fees because they don't really have enough actual volume to make any money from trading. And so
That's a good point.
so the business model is the listing fee. And
Right.
to me, it's harder right now because there's a lot of exchanges that have legitimate volume. They're not faking. The problem is those exchanges don't charge listing fees, but they also won't take a risk on a startup project or a newer project. They want you to have this is the catch 22. They want you to have some kind of track record So you have to
Right.
so you have to pay listing fees on shitty or mid-level exchanges before the bigger exchanges will even take a risk on you. So it's kind of like, it's a tough position for like a community project or an actual legitimate project, not just some hype token ICO nonsense, but a project that really has potential. It's just kind of hard, you know, to be in that spot.
Right.
But to me, if you know, the whole point of getting on exchanges, part of it is that it makes it easier for the people that want to use our, you know, coin to buy and sell. So there's more on ramps, more liquidity. That's the whole point, right? So if I'm evaluating an exchange, we have to look at it as, what are they going to bring to our project? And if they're really not going to bring any more volume or any volume to the project because they're faking it, I can't justify recommending to, you know, the Tusk community that they spend the money on listing on that. And so it's interesting, you know, and I'm glad that like CoinGecko has a really, really good setup. They're like kind of like CoinMarketCap, but they're kind of newer and a little smaller. They have
Yeah.
a lot
I
of interest. They have a
like
trust.
coin. So
I love CoinGecko. I've interviewed their CEO before. Um, the guy will email me back. Like it's funny because I can get to the president of that company and he usually emails me back personally within a day every time I've ever emailed him. And, you know, try
oh,
to get a hold of somebody at CoinMarketCap. Let me know how that goes.
true, true. They respond back on Twitter if you call them out about stuff, though. I've had that experience.
Well, I think part of the problem is, and I've talked to a lot of people, and I'm not here to badmouth, you know, anybody because that's just not my thing. But, you know, CoinMarketCap has some, I don't know if they're always acting in good faith. And, you know, they've been the leader, right? So they've been the big dog for forever. So everybody looks at them, and being on CoinMarketCap's like kind of a litmus test for a lot of people. So if your project isn't on CoinMarketCap, you're garbage. But then on the other hand, you run into that same kind of problem, is that, you know, the way you get on tracked on CoinMarketCap now, you have to be on some exchanges, and you have to pay stupid listing fees for those exchanges. And some of those exchanges that CoinMarketCap requires have questionable volumes. So, you know, what do you do? You know, do you waste 100 grand to get on an exchange that probably won't add any value to your project just so CoinMarketCap will list you? Is that fair? You know, that's the kind of thing that I get a little frustrated with this community in general, or this industry, is because for crypto to grow, that shit needs to stop. To be honest, that shit needs to stop. Anyways, I'm sorry, I'm ranting right now. Anyways,
Oh
tell me
no,
about.
I mean it makes perfect sense though. These exchanges are, for the most part, where people first go to look to buy different cryptocurrencies. Obviously, you know, you have some on ramps like Coinbase, which it's almost impossible for you to get on Coinbase, and you know, et cetera, et cetera. But from there, the next place are these exchanges, and you know, from there, if the exchanges are making it hard for actual real projects with a real use case to get listed, they're just also then making it hard for people that are trying to get into crypto to actually get into crypto. So as someone who's a big proponent of adoption, I'm right there with you.
Well, I mean, think of it like that, right? Like, so the system, I believe, does have an air of corruption to it, and well, you know that. And you know, just say I'm here for the tech. I am here for the tech. Sure, would I love to have a Lambo? Sure, you know, but you know, my driving force is, after we've been building for 2 years, you know, our focus is, and we got a plan to get adopted, and we're making huge, you know, strides in that direction. But to me, it's like, it's almost like you have like a cartel in some ways of bad actors that do control what people are seeing, where people that are new to crypto are seeing. So one of the things that I think is the future, because I actually am a big proponent of decentralization, and one of the things that I think is going to be the future, and there's no way to track this. And as a project, unfortunately, you've got to look at, if I get on an exchange, you know, one, are they a reliable exchange? But two, are they properly tracking volume so people can have an accurate picture of what your project is or is not doing? Right now, I like you mentioned earlier, Change Angel. By the way, I'm interviewing their founder next week, so I'm already on those guys. But there's like
Oh, nice.
these top, yeah, I think his name's Ben, and so I'm going to be talking to the Change Angel guys next week. And one of the things I think the future, as far as I see it, I'd like to see more control of the industry getting taken away from the exchanges. And I think the atomic swap app community, which seems to have really exploded over the last 6 months, you know, you got VertBase and you got Change Angel and Fast and a bunch of these others that are now coming into the market. I think that that is the future, where you don't have to go through an exchange. You just can go through an app and switch between tokens. And to me, I think that goes back to the heart and the root of decentralization. But the problem is, as a project, so here's another one of those catch-22s, right? I see the world through being a project now, both as a token and as a coin, right? So I have kind of a weird experience, you know, seeing it. Is that there's really not a way for projects that are on those decentralized, you know, atomic swap apps, their volume of how much is moving through there isn't tracked, you know, by these DEX or these trackers like Coin Market Cap and CoinGecko. And I think there's some reasons for that. They say that, you know, the volume from those is actually being put through different exchanges. But I think, to me, I think that's where the future should be. But there's not a mechanism to really, as a project, to track those kind of more on-chain transactions versus just what's, you know, happening on exchanges. I mean, what do you think about the atomic swap apps like, you know, VertBase and Change Angel and those things?
Well, I'm a big fan of them because, you know, if I'm a merchant, or not even a merchant, if I'm just anybody and I sell something and your preferred currency is not specifically my preferred currency, I don't have to turn down that sale if I know that there's an app where I can easily go and just swap it out, and I'm not really losing a ton of money in fees. You know, that makes a lot of sense to me, apps like that. So I like you said, I think that's more, I don't know if decentralized exchanges or these atomic swap type apps, you know, which of the two is going to be, you know, what people look towards in the future. But one of the two is going to win out over these exchanges for sure.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of, I'm hoping that happens, because I think that there's too much power consolidated and concentrated in too few hands right now. But, you know, I still think we're really early in this space, and I think that there's just a lot of things shaking out. So besides the fake volume that we're seeing out there, what other things do you see as being like impediments to adoption?
Just not having access, for example, like, you know, Binance shut down, and that was a major exchange that we were all using. And then they came out with Binance US, except for Florida and, you know, some other places. So I still can't use Binance in the US because it's not yet in the state of Florida. So the issue that I see is that there's not uniform ways where, you know, in the United States, at least, I can't speak on other countries because I don't live there, but in the United States, there's not uniform on-ramps and off-ramps for people to accept crypto and then cash that crypto out if they need US dollars again. Now, obviously, for us, the main goal is to get crypto and stay in crypto. But, you know, for the average person who doesn't know how to pay their rent with Bitcoin or, you know, do groceries, you know, with crypto or whatever, you know, they might want US dollar again. And there's not an easy way. There's regulatory uncertainty, which doesn't make sense, you know. And so I feel like there just needs to be something simple that makes sense. You know, when you go to your bank, they don't teach you about all their encryption and tell you about what kind of locks they use on the vault. You just trust that your money is safe. You don't know the technology that keeps it safe, and you're fine. And that thinking kind of got people in trouble because now money is just being printed crazy. But it's easy for them. They go, they set up a bank account, they see a smiling face, they're happy, they swipe a card, they spend their money. Once crypto reaches that level, there's not going to be an excuse anymore not to use it, not to accept it, not to embrace it.
I agree. I think you see this a lot with, like, people bring up volatility, right? Like, I would accept, you know, XYZ crypto if it wasn't volatile. But I always point out, you know, and then they say, you know, use a stable coin. I am not a fan of stable coins whatsoever. And I got my own reasons for that. But one of the things that I say is, look, crypto is so volatile right now because people aren't using it for buying and selling goods and services, in any real degree. Everybody's just speculating on crypto right now. And that's what's driving the volatility. Fiat currencies, I mean, you asked, what's the US dollar pegged to, right? The US dollar is the most stable fiat in the world right now, and it's very stable, and it's stable because it's being used and it has huge liquidity, whereas other fiat currencies around the world are not. They get very volatile very quickly when people lose faith in them and they don't use them anymore. And I think once crypto starts getting adopted, I think it's going to stabilize out. It just means it's just going to have to actually be used for things other than investment purposes, and I think that'll happen in time. But to me, I'm not a fan of stable coins. What do you think of stable coins? I like to always hear people's opinions on those.
There's only one stable coin that I kind of agree with. From my understanding, the partnership with Coinbase and Circle or whatever it is to make USDC, my understanding with that is USDC is only minted because it's a mintable token, but it's only minted when someone actually buys it, and then it's destroyed when someone cashes it back out, from my understanding of it. And I think that's exactly how a stablecoin should work. If it's going to be stable and it's going to be pegged to something, every single time it's purchased, it should be minted, and then when it's cashed out, it should be destroyed. I think as far as stable coins, that's one of the only ones that I actually agree with. The fact that Tether is even considered part of the crypto market cap kind of infuriates me, because they can literally just print whenever they want. There's so many different versions of Tether. There's ERC20. There's a Tether that's based on Bitcoin. There's a Tron version of Tether now. It's crazy. They can just mint whatever they want, and it supposedly is money. Well, we don't know that. I think that's crazy. But the way that Coinbase does it, I don't agree with everything Coinbase does, but I think they're doing stable coins right. If I had to pick one, that's the one I would pick.
Well, I mean, that's a much better way to do a stable coin. I think the problem is with Tether and so many others is that they just got this random artificial peg. And, I mean, you could even make, you can even talk about Maker as well, but, this maintaining that artificial peg with bots is just really rife for being undermined or imploding, and corruption is what we're seeing, at least with the lawsuit with Tether out of New York. I'm not an attorney, but I do look at some of those documents and pleadings, and I'm just like, this just looks like one big cluster F of corruption all the way around. And you got guys that probably shouldn't be in the financial world whatsoever, being in charge of things that are worth billions and billions of dollars that they're just making out of nowhere. And it's like, I don't see how that's better than the dollar, to be honest, or any kind of corrupt government, issuing fiat at will. It just seems like the same thing to me.
So I like what you said, and I'm going to kind of add on to that a little bit. I saw a quote the other day from someone who was saying, like, why should we trust cryptocurrencies, and why aren't we trusting, governments to make the money for us? And it was, someone said, like, the nerds that made the internet, which is this most amazing thing ever, also made cryptocurrency. The government made this money that has depreciated over time. Like, which one do you trust more? So what I mean by that is I'm kind of okay with the nerds, experimenting and figuring things out for a little while, but we do need some order. A little bit, but I think as someone who's like a really big, like, I'm okay with capitalism just existing in its purest form. I think with how trustless cryptocurrency is, and with me being okay with capitalism like that, I think we're going to figure out which money is sound money and which is not. And unfortunately for Tether, I don't think that that's sound money. And I think that anyone that looks at it from a trustless standpoint, actually verifying things on chain, can kind of see that Tether is not really something that we should put our faith in. So certain things like that will get shaped out over time. I'm not overly concerned with, scammy projects and stuff like that, because crypto is kind of forcing people to get smarter and to learn more. And even though, like I was saying, it needs to be easier for everyone else to kind of get on board. I think the people that are here now are doing a terrific job of managing what projects make sense and which ones don't, and kind of informing the rest of us. And that's why we exist, to educate and make videos and teach people about stuff. And that's why you do what you do, as far as interviews and talking to real people in the industry that are actually doing something. So,
well, that's why
I'm worried about it.
Well, that's why I'm talking to you, because I believe that you can learn a lot by somebody by just meeting them face to face. I like to develop personal relationships with people, and I'm a pretty good read of people in general, and I got a really good bullshit detector. And I think the market's already changing. The crypto world is changing. It is getting better. It's not quite there yet, and I think we have these centralized oracles right now telling us, and maybe with some corruption and, conflicts of interest, what is a good project. But what I think is going to happen, and what has to happen, is how we evaluate a crypto project needs to change. And I think it's going to change. And I'm a simple guy. I am not a developer. I don't claim to be a developer. I'm an entrepreneur, and I've been an entrepreneur, fairly successful in my life, and I'm a simple guy, right? People can come up with these really complicated models that I don't understand. And this is what I find. The more complicated the model is, the more likely it's not going to work and fail, and more likely it's going to be corrupted. And then on top of that, to me, when it comes to business, whether it's a crypto project or any kind of startup, right? At some point, things like paying customers and sales numbers kind of have to be part of that equation. And to me, ultimately, even if you have the greatest tech, you still need to have a market for that tech, and, I always kind of see when, I know a little bit about angel investing, right? And, in the angel investing world, when which have very, very much smaller raises in general, especially on early stage startups, than what these crypto ICOs were raising, right? Angel investors, they might invest, 50 grand, 100 grand, a couple $100,000 at a seed stage business. And the diligence they do to invest that small amount of money in comparison is they do background checks on the founders, like criminal background checks. They have a whole resume on the founder. They do credit checks on the founder. They have not just a white paper, but they actually have a business plan, which talks about how that entrepreneur can get to market and get customers and things like that. And to me, when we were looking at ICO world, you got people that have scrubbed LinkedIn. So they're 40 years old and they've only had jobs for 3 years, according to their LinkedIn. So you don't know what the guy was doing 3 years ago, which is a big red flag. They don't have any kind of go to market plan. They're just like, here's a white paper. We got something nifty. We're going to put XYZ on blockchain. And that was insane. You can't invest like that. That's insane. And so a lot of people did lose a lot of money because it was insane to invest in things like that. But I think it's changing now. And I think as we look to reevaluating the value of a project, and we have different metrics applied, I think crypto will be a more mature and more acceptable industry, but we have to get there. It can't just be about, oh, they got 1,200 people in their Telegram group, they must be a good project, when, some guy paid, bounties to get, 3 guys in the Philippines to go set up 100 or 1,500 accounts, to join it. And that's what's happened, right? These people are raising money on fake Twitter follower numbers, which is crazy. Anyways, I'm ranting again, but, I have an opinion about this.
And it's a valid opinion. I've seen too many bounty programs where it has nothing to even do with the project. Like this tweet from this person, retweet it, and you get 500 tokens. Join the Telegram, 1,000 tokens, and it's like, okay, what do these tokens even do? What is your project about? I see more about the bounty than I do about the actual development. And I would rather have it the complete opposite way, be all about the project and not about, the actual bounty itself. If there's a bounty that exists, that's cool, but it should be like share the white paper with your friends and get their opinion about it. Or so I don't know, like something that actually makes sense towards that particular project instead of just like shill us and we'll give you fake money that we've created.
Yeah, well, I mean, that goes back to kind of like, getting investors and, goes back to the metrics, right? So the incentives were geared toward the metrics that people were either raising money on or getting on exchanges with. And the size, quote unquote, the size of the community is one of those metrics that the exchanges look at. But the problem is a lot of those followings are dead or fake. And so it's, that I think that's what drove that. And hopefully I think it's going to change at some point. It has to change because it's just not the real world. It's fraud. It's just make believe. And I, with our project, I actually spend more of my time in the industry we're focused on rather than just the crypto space. And, I do see that I actually talk to potential customers and potential retailers in our space. And the things they keep bringing up to me is, it's volatility is one of them. But the most important one is that they think crypto is a scam because of the industry has a really negative stigma attached to it. And I think, unfortunately, it's because so much of the industry has been a scam. That doesn't mean that there's not really, really amazing opportunities for legitimate crypto projects to change the world. And I think that will happen. I don't know which projects they're going to be that do that, but I think it's going to happen. It has to happen. But I think the things that you guys are doing with bits and tokens are, and hopefully what I'm doing with what I do, we're going to hopefully be a part of that. So a little bit more about you, you guys do a podcast. You guys have a media production company. What else do you guys do? What exactly would be the services? Say I was going to hire you for something. What can you do for me?
So we've done a lot of things for people. Basically, the way that I like to put it, we can be as full service as necessary when it comes to media. So let's say for your project, for example, someone should be focused on just developing and making it the best that they can make it. And then someone else should do the social media, the, marketing aspect, the actual media for it, graphics, video, things of that nature, flyers, what have you. So we do things like that. But then also we have hosted multiple events across the country. People will pay us for like emceeing, doing AV, audio visual stuff. So live streaming events and making sure the audio and like slideshows are, appropriate for the appropriate time. Interviews. Our list of services is so big, but pretty much anything that involves, a camera, whether it's photography or videography, from production and direction all the way up to just if you already have the whole idea, you just need me to hold the camera. A ton of things. Our main focus and what we do, like for our channel, is just documenting cryptocurrency and the blockchain revolution. We do a lot of different work as far as, the companies we work with, commercials and things of that nature.
Where would you like to see yourself as in your business, say 5 years, 10 years? What would be your goals?
So we have really big aspirations. We right now are South Florida's largest growing media company, which is cool, and I want to keep adding on to that. So in 5 years, I'd like to be a major news outlet for cryptocurrency with, multiple people in multiple parts of the world gathering content and doing interviews and, really figuring out who is to be trusted and who we can verify as a good person with good intentions.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
and big goals are, I think, important. And I think the fact that you even have them says a lot because so many people don't, it's funny how many kind of startup companies or small companies you ask, what's your goal? And they can't even articulate what their goal is. It's like they don't have a plan. And to me, if you don't have a plan, you can't execute a plan. Where can people find out more about you guys?
So probably the best place is following us on social media. Obviously, bitsandtokens.com is there. It has links to everything, so you'll be able to find us all just by scrolling through that page. And then you can find some of our services and stuff like that on there as well. But yeah, probably social media is the best place. We're all really active on social media, especially me and Annalise, one of the other co-founders here. So my handle on Twitter is BTC Weatherman, and then her handle is Annalise_BNT, and the spelling is ANNALESE. And then, yeah, just find us on Twitter and reach out and say hi. We're real friendly. We love making friends, so yeah, that's what this industry is about, is just meeting people and growing together and pushing forward for the same goal.
Wonderful. Tim, thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, absolutely. It was a blast. Thanks for having me.
We'll do it again. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. See you later.
Thank you for listening to the Rob McNealy program. Make sure you check us out on the web at robmcnealy.com and subscribe to our podcast at YouTube, iTunes, and on the Google Play Store.